Hello, and welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Network Podcast, where everyone belongs, especially if you think you don't. My name is Chris Grundeman, and as always, I'm joined by my absolutely wonderful co-host, Zoe Rose.
Hey.
This is the Marina Ferreira episode, and I have a good feeling about this one. Marina is a data center and cloud technical solution architect, a 3 times CCIE, and I'm lucky to say a friend of mine and a wonderful human being. Hey, Marina, would you like to introduce yourself to the Imposter Syndrome Network?
Oh, absolutely. Well, after that, I don't think I need to introduce myself. That was amazing. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't done one of these for quite some time, so I was a little bit nervous, but I'm actually, getting my act together. So thank you for having me, guys.
Well, thanks for joining us. I think it's going to be a treat for the network, and I'm glad you're feeling comfortable here. I do want to start kind of right at the current moment. As I said, you work at Cisco as a technical solutions architect covering data center and cloud. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
So that's interesting. So I've been here for 3 years now, right? And I have gone through different technologies, right? Right now, at the moment, I'm on this specialized role where, yes, I cover data center and cloud networking solutions. It's because it's an overlay position. So I have specific products that I'm responsible for. And that, again, falls into the data center and cloud networking category at the moment. There's other stuff within the data center as well, but that's a different team, like compute, storage, that goes to another team. But networking specifically, that falls under me for the area that I support.
Okay, so it's networking inside of data center and cloud.
Yep, there we go. Absolutely, yeah. And that's where I have spent most of my time lately and in the last few years as well.
Cool. So I think, a lot of us have worked with a solutions engineer on one side of the table or the other. A lot of people who are in enterprise tech or even service provider tech have worked with vendor folks. And a lot of times that's the solution architect or solution engineer. But not everyone has worked on that side, on your side, kind of on the vendor side, actually being a solution architect or solution engineer. Can you dig a little deeper for us and tell me maybe what does a day in the life of your work today look like?
Sure. So the one thing I want to clarify that too is that, so right now where I am in a pre-sales capacity, meaning I work with accountings, right? That's still, the pre-sales capacity where we are just, going to customer, presenting the solutions based on their requirements, right? I don't actually work a lot. For example, I don't interact a lot with the engineering team building the product, right? If I don't have to. It's mainly with the product managers. Sometimes we have what we call TMEs as well. When I need to know certain very specific or more about the product I don't know, so I have to go there. But I don't interact a lot, again, with the actual people developing the product. But the good thing about working for a vendor, which was something that I always wanted to do, is the fact that I have access to a lot of information that I didn't have before, right? I don't get to see how things are built, but I do have access to how it was built, right? All the documentation, all of the, collateral that comes with that. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. That sometimes that's not available publicly, right? So that's pretty good. Now, to answer your question around how is my day, so every day is different. It's internal meetings with customer meetings. This year in particular, I haven't done a lot of customer meetings in person. Most of my customer meetings still have been virtual, and I guess it's pretty much for everyone, right? But on a day where it's very common, that's where I go have customer meeting. I do demos all the time. I do presentations around product updates, a roadmap, or explain to a customer how things work. I have to develop bill of materials depending on what stage I am with that particular customer. I have existing customer, I have new customers. So it all depends. Every day is a little bit of everything in here. So, and I really enjoy the fact that now I have access to more information that I didn't have before. So being in this position on sales capacity, like I said.
That sounds really interesting. It sounds really challenging, but it sounds really interesting. I was curious with that variety of the work that you do and the different types of situations you find yourself in a day, what do you think is the most valuable skill that you've developed for that role?
I think it's the ability to navigate across different solutions because it sounds simple, just data center networking. What is it, just switching? It's not only that. It's also the software because it might be a controller-based type of solution in there. There's a day-to operations tool that comes on top of that as well. And sometimes there is integration of other technologies from other, from other business units. So you have to navigate those very well, right? Really understand the product that you are positioning. And again, based on customer requirements, of course. It's having that, sometimes I feel like an orchestrator sometimes as well, because being a specialized role, you have to know your product, your stuff you do, but a little bit of how things integrate with other stuff as well, because Cisco has so many other products, so many other solutions for different like security, collaboration, right? So it's not only data center. So having that ability to navigate across, that helps a lot.
That makes a ton of sense. And it sounds like that's something that you kind of enjoy, right? I've heard that this access to, new information or information that not everyone has access to, and then being able to navigate across those sources of information, that feels like something that's important to you or interesting to you. And I know from your history that you've been a solution architect for quite a while now. Is that what you love about being a solution architect, or is there something else? I mean, what is it that keeps you in that role versus, venturing around to some other kind of technical position?
So before I joined pre-sales, right, before I became a solutions architect overall, I was working for this company. It was my first real job, right? That was operations, right? That was after the fact. Things were already implemented. So we just have to operate the environment. So then you have to do troubleshooting and do things like that. I did that for some time. And then when I joined another technology partner, the first year I was on the post-sales side as well. I was providing some consulting services for implementation. But I was getting a lot of things coming from pre-sales, but this is missing, or this is not going to work. I was like, you know what, maybe I should just switch. Maybe I should switch my position. Let me work on the pre-sales side, right? So I was there for 1 year only. In that capacity, then I moved to pre-sales, which now has been almost, I've been doing this for almost over 10 years, right? In this. Because, Chris, when you work on a pre-sales, you are the one building the architecture. You are the one putting things together. And you are the owner, right? So you know that, there's someone else going to implement it, but you are the one and I'm going to make sure that, whatever it is I'm selling here, whatever it is I'm working here, it's going to go the way it's supposed to go to my post-sales team. So that's what happened. That was my driver to move from post-sales to pre-sales, and that's where I have been, and that's where I enjoy the most, because I do like the architecture role, right, that I have right now. So
that's a lot of responsibility, though. I agree with you, and I like that, because I've been in situations that you mentioned where it's already been sold and then I have to implement it and it's not necessarily the right solution. Even the best solutions might not be the right one for some people or some situations. So I like what you kind of explained there, is that responsibility of getting it right from the start. From a security perspective, it's getting the security embedded from the start, getting it right, the right type of solutions in place. Within Chris's intro of you, which was very lovely, he did mention that you have 3 CCIEs. That is bloody impressive. Why? But also how? How did you go about getting those?
It's crazy, right? So the first one was, that was like many years now. I think it was like over 10 years or 12. I lost count, but I think back in 2008, right? That was the first one, routing switching. And I did it because I was like, you know what? Because I use certification as a learning tool for me. That's how I learn things sometimes. And I like to have some bit of hands-on. So I did that one. And I remember I told myself, I'm never going to do this again. Because you have no idea. People listen to this, they would know, right? It takes a lot from you. It's a lot of time that you put in. It's a lot of commitment. And I remember saying, this is it. I did it. I got it. That's it. I'm going to move on. And then in 2014, I moved to US, right? 1 year after I moved to US, I was in this service provider team. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should go back and look into this, because I want to make sure that when I talk to my customers, I know what they're talking about. I the same language. I decided to pursue a service provider, and I did it again. I was like, come on. But it took some time. There was like a time that I needed, like 6 years, 5 years, right? And then I did it as well. That was good. And then that's it. I'm done. Again, I was like, I'm not looking at this anymore because a lot of time, a lot of commitment. But then I started switching more from service provider to data center as well. That was when I started my whole thing, even before Cisco. And I was like, I guess I need to do this again. And then I did it. And so far, I have no plans to go after another CCIE. If I ever do again, if that comes up again, probably I would go to security, because I have a thing for security. But right now, at the moment, I'm not thinking about any other CCIEs, because it's a lot of investment. It's a lot of time that you put in. And I don't regret a thing, but it takes a lot of it. So
much. Yeah. So I've never gone down anywhere near that far on the Cisco track. but I'm also a network engineer. And so I've gone through the process for a JNCIE, right? The Juniper expert-level cert. And I did do mine when the professional cert from Juniper was also a practical exam. So I took 2 practical exams to get my JNCIE. Now, I'm not going to put that on par with the 2 full CCIEs, or now the 3rd full CCIEs that you've done, but I can, empathize with the amount of work involved. I guess my question is, was it worth it?
It was. Financially speaking, that was one of the motivation also at the beginning, right? After the second, it doesn't make a lot of difference. I mean, not in my case, but yes, it was worth it. I would, but like I said, I'm not planning any other in the near future for now. And I'm always amazed with people that can do that, because it's a technical thing that you do, but it's also, you learn so much about yourself because you go through motions, some people say the psychological type of certification, right? Because it involves a lot also. So
Yeah, for sure. I know some of my friends that, not as many as you, but they got their CCIEs and they didn't pass on the first try, but they kept going and they eventually got it. And I think that being able to go for your CCIE, even just go for it, to me is massively impressive. Never mind achieving it, and also even situations where people have failed and then achieved it after like 5 or 6 tries in some situations. Like that to me is well impressive. I don't think I'm that dedicated or motivated. I would love to, but the motivation and the skills required for going that far to me is just brilliant. Would you say that you would recommend taking that approach for other people looking to go to a similar career path as you, or is that something that you think is kind of dependent?
I think it depends on the person, right? Because maybe what worked for me, you're not going to work for other people, right? Because things change as well, right? For example, right now, what is popular, right? Cloud certifications, right? Not so much. I mean, not to say the SCCIE is not. It depends, right? Depend on the person, what they're looking for. So it's hard. It's hard to say, what is. Back in the days, I mean, my first CCIE was 2018. At the time, there was no cloud certifications at all. So that was it. Right now, there's more competition. There's others out there. So it depends on what you're doing, what you're looking for, Then, of course, absolutely. If anyone comes to me, ask me my advice on that, if they want to pursue like a CCIE track, absolutely. But I'm pretty sure there's other things as well that you would probably get it sooner. And it might be as important as well. So depending on
But then you can't go to the CCIE parties at Cisco Live. So I don't know. No, that's a really good point. So the other thing I was going to say is I like the part you said is that it depends. That is the most consulting answer ever. That's the answer I have for everything. Whenever it's, well, it depends. So that just made me laugh a little bit. But going back to another point that I think, Chris, you already mentioned this, was an award you recently won, a Distinguished Speaker Award. How is that? And maybe tell us a bit about how you achieved that.
Oh, sure, absolutely, because I was so surprised by that too. So here's the thing. I haven't spoken about that much. I mean, I posted on LinkedIn a few days ago, of course, but I was kind of shocked because I was so nervous. And to be very honest, at that time, I was going through some personal issues. I was not in my best day. And I was like, it got to a point, I was like, you know what? I need to concentrate for this. I need to focus on this because this is the most important thing that I have to do. And I did it, but my mental state wasn't that great. And I did it. That's why I think I was so shocked, because I was like, because I thought the first 5 minutes that I did it, it was the first time I was presenting as a Cisco employee, first time in that, Cisco. Oh my God, it was like, I don't even know how to say that. It was indescribable, like I said on my post as well. And you walk around and you see all the other speakers that are very known speakers, right? They have just got distinguished awards like forever, right? And I wasn't expecting. I was really not expecting, but I got it. There was great customers coming in. There's partners. There's people that I worked with in the past coming in as well. It was a huge experience. And one thing I can tell, it was because it was my first time. It was on a Wednesday, right? And typically, if it is on a Monday, maybe I would just get this done and then I'll be okay for the rest of the week, but it wasn't a Wednesday. So I spent the whole event just waiting for that moment. It was killing me. But I would do it over again because it was a great experience. This year has been my highlight. So I love it. And I even said that it wasn't my best day, personally speaking, because there were so many things happening in my life, but I got it and I'm happy about it. And but I must say, this is Imposter Network, right? I must say that it wasn't like a huge breakout session, right? Like us did, like a 2-hour session, something like that. It wasn't a DevNet session, not to say that it was not important, but it was just amazing experience. And I was like, I'm still a little bit, overwhelmed by that. I don't know what to say anymore about that, but it was a huge, huge, huge thing for me. So
it is super awesome. Congratulations. That's fantastic. And actually on that point you were making about, maybe this wasn't the keynote at the big hall, but it was this DevNet session. I think a lot of folks who are trying to build their careers look at public speaking as a potential avenue for growth, right? And so I wonder, coming from your background, again, being on the pre-sale side, you're probably doing presentations on technical topics all the time. And so I wonder if there's a translation between a customer call that's over Zoom or even in person versus, getting there up on stage and actually doing this DevNet presentation that ultimately wins you this, Distinguished Speaker Award. Are they totally different things? Are they the same? Is there carryover?
It's different. It gives you some baggage, of course, right? But public speaking with people that never seen before, it's completely different. The energy. And also the fact that, remember, we're all locked, right? I haven't done any public speaking for 3 years, right? Almost 3 years. So it was like, it's a learning thing again. So I'm not going to say I'm an expert at this because I'm not. I need to get better at this. But definitely that's how you get more exposure and more experience as well, right? But just doing the customer presentations, virtual and in person, it helps. Again, it gives you some baggage. But being on a stage like that, that's something else. That's really something else. So
I think the best advice I got was from a lady when I was speaking in Australia, and I was super, super nervous. And she's like, you don't have to be the best. Just be one better than the worst and you're good. And that, honestly, as weird as that advice is, it was the best advice I've ever received. I never aim to be the best. I just want to be slightly better than the worst. And it helps me relax a little bit. It's a bit weird, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, you have a Distinguished Speaker Award, so you were clearly excellent. So I will say I'm probably not aiming to be as great as you, but as long as I'm not the worst.
No, but thank you. It's great motivation for the next. So, well, let's see how things works out from here.
So I actually do want to change the subject a bit, Marina. And I'd like to talk to you about the experience of, I believe you started your career in Brazil and now you live in New York City. So you've gone from kind of, the global South and Latin America into the United States and into New York City. Some would say the capital of the world. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that transition. I mean, is this something that, you were driven to do, or did it just happen, right? I mean, why come to the US? Was that intentional, or did that just kind of unfold throughout your career?
Yeah, what happened was that I was to come here for vacations, for PTO, and I always wanted to live in New York City. That was one of my, dreams, right? I was like, one day I would come here, I will live here. But I thought that was something like very far away, right? But what happened that I was working for this technology partner, was my second IT job that I had. And I was like, there was this team that was looking for someone to work for, there was like a service provider team that they were building. It was a new team and they needed someone to help with that, right? So they're looking for a solutions architect at the time. And when you know some people that know you well, thinks that you can do a good job. So I had this person that he was the sponsor for me at the time. And he said, do you want to take a look at this? Maybe you can go and help with this new team. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And this was supposed to be 1 year. And it became now what? 9 years? Yeah, 9 years, pretty much, right? But it wasn't something that I wanted to do, right, to answer your question. But I never thought it would really happen, until one day it came true, right? So I moved to US in 2013. So I've been here for 9 years now. So it's very difficult, by the way, right? For you to have a sponsor, right, to come here. In my case, the company that I was working for did what we call intra-company transfer. That helped me get to the process, right? Because otherwise it's very difficult to work here without having that type of sponsorship, right? So, and that happened for me. I think I was looking to have that ability. And when I was 1 year, I was like, I think I will continue to work here. I like it here. So, and then I stayed. 1 year became 9 years. And different market, completely different market. So,
wow. I think in my organization, I work with a lot of different languages. I don't speak multiple languages. I'm very jealous of everybody that does. But one thing I noticed is a lot of times if somebody speaks English as their second language, they tend to apologize for not being perfect English whilst speaking perfect English, mind you, better than me most of the time. But one thing I always ask my colleagues who speak multiple languages, is it really difficult to transition from, I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption here, in Brazil, I suspect you weren't speaking English every day as your daily working. And then moving to America, you probably had to speak English in a lot of situations. Was that a hard transition?
So a little bit, right? So before I came to US, I knew a little bit of English, so I had enough English knowledge at the time. And before even I moved to US, and on my first job that I had to speak English, right, on a daily basis, because it was a global operations team and we're just doing things in English, right? That helped a lot. But at home, no, it's just Portuguese, right? And then on my second job, it was eventually I was speaking English for certain things, right? But not as often, right? When I came to US, then yes, then things changed completely, right? But you get better at that, right? Living here is completely different, right? You interact with people that you have to speak no matter what, right? By no means I'm like a proficient, right, in English, but I can communicate way better than I was communicating like 5 years ago or 9 years ago, right? So it's getting better. One thing that I struggle sometimes, which is interesting, if I need to count, I have to think in Portuguese. I still cannot think in English. Like if I need to do any mathematics, I have to go Portuguese in my mind. Everything else, it's okay, right? But the mathematics, I still have to do Portuguese first. And sometimes I'm with a customer, and sometimes it's about like number of transceivers, and can you hold a minute? Just hold a minute, and then in my mind, I do my math, and then everything's fine. So I still struggle a little bit. Sometimes I forget things. Sometimes I don't know how to say certain things, and I have to ask, or I just pause, So yeah, that happens. I think, but over time, I guess you get more, proficient, right? Well, I don't think 9 years ago, I don't think I would be having this conversation this way. So I guess I got better over time.
It is very impressive, though. Like, as I said, I struggle with English half the time. So I'm so impressed with people that can handle multiple languages.
Yeah. And you know what happened also? I mix. So with people that are my friends now, when I have to test or something, I mix English and Portuguese. Because sometimes for me, it's easy to type in English, right? And then I just mix. It's a very interesting thing, right? And so I do both. So for people that understand Portuguese, of course. Yeah.
As a immigrant myself, I am not, I live in the Netherlands at the moment, but I'm not actually Dutch. I don't sound Dutch as well, but so it's not a guess. But one thing that I struggle with when I moved was culturally, it's very different than what I grew up with, but also it's hard to feel like I fit in sometimes. And I feel like some of my imposter syndrome is stemming from not necessarily feeling like I'm a part of things in some situations, especially when I move. I've moved quite a few times. Do you ever feel like that being an immigrant can cause a little bit of anxiety in professional experience, or maybe add a bit of stress to the, I guess, settling in?
Yeah, that's a really a great point, and I think I felt that way, but on my early days when I moved to US, not right now. Right now, I don't feel that like that anymore. Right? I think I guess I feel more confident right now, but in my first years, absolutely, because it takes time, right? It really takes time for you to find your own way through things, right? I remember learning new expressions that I never heard before. I'm not going to tell you one. I mean, don't laugh, but I remember I was in this meeting, and it was a sales meeting, and this guy was saying, "Hey, yeah, because we need to take care of like the low hanging fruit." I was like, what is low hanging fruit? To me, I have never heard it. I was like, I don't know what it is, but anyway, maybe in Portuguese I knew more or less what it was. And there's so many other expressions that even today sometimes I like, and sometimes now I'm using myself. But at the beginning, for me, it was like foreign language, right? So those types of things, right? The behavior, sometimes the conversations that you have with your manager, for example, is different, a little bit different. Like it's a different culture, right? So it has to be different, right? But you learn a lot from it, though. It's over time I don't know if you get used to it or you just feel comfortable, right? You get to a point where you just feel comfortable and more confident. But it takes time. Back to your question, absolutely. At the beginning, at the early years, was something like that. Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And specifically idioms, I know that was a big focus. I worked for several years for the Internet Society, which is like a global non-governmental organization. And I kind of traveled around the world speaking at conferences and worked within the IETF, which is a global organization. And that was a really big thing for me personally, but for those organizations as well, which is kind of getting beyond the idioms and kind of moving past these cliches and things that we tend to use, in American speech or in Western English speech in general, like tightening our belts and getting the low-hanging fruit. And, I can't remember any more right now, but there's a ton of them that don't actually make any sense if you take them literally. And especially if you take them literally and then translate them into someone's native language, they're nonsense, right? And so that's actually a big challenge, I think, in global communication, really.
London has many odd slang, many odd slang. I'm not going to say them because, gosh, but when I started, I also told people my story is hilarious. In a room of all of my bosses, essentially, and my coworkers, I was wearing a skirt and I had some switches, or I think it was a switch to rack. Yeah. And I was looking at it and I'm like, I should have worn some pants. In the UK, pants is underwear. So I basically told the boss, like senior everybody, that I was going commando. So now I refer to it as trousers because yeah.
On that note, we are running out of time for today. It's actual clock time, not because of these comments, I promise. Marina, Zoe and I and the entire Imposter Syndrome Network want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your story with all of us. Thank you. And thank you to everyone out there listening. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention and your support as well. If you haven't already, please feel free to join us on LinkedIn. We have a group for conversations between the episodes, but really more than that, for this community, for this Imposter Syndrome Network, to get together, to give and get advice from each other about our careers and our work. Now, Marina, before we close out this episode, I do have one more question for you. Now, whether or not you call it imposter syndrome, I think that, what I've seen, as with all of our guests, right, is a little bit of hesitancy to pat yourself on the shoulder or be as comfortable with your success as you have been. So, when you're feeling that way, right, when you're feeling like, I'm not quite ready for this DevNet presentation, or, I haven't really done a podcast like this in a long time and I don't feel quite comfortable with it. What do you do to deal with those feelings?
So lately, it's been quite a few of those type of challenges. You know what I'm doing? I take a deep breath. Like I would do it. No matter what, I would do it. There was a time where I wouldn't do it, but now I'm just challenging myself. I'm just pushing myself a little bit more. So, and I think we should do that. I'll do that anyway, right? So yeah, pushing myself.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Are there any projects you're working on or involved in that the network should be aware of, or either yes or no? Is there ways folks can connect with you if they hear this episode and they want to reach out and say hi or ask for some advice or something?
Oh, sure. You can connect with me through LinkedIn, and the things I'm working right now that's going to be out in a few weeks, I hope. I have a blog series that I'm putting together for a specific product that I'm working with. So that's going to be out, which is something that I haven't done a lot lately, right? So we're just writing blogs. So I'm going back to that for this particular product. So it should be out. This series should be out in a few weeks. And I hope that people would enjoy that too. So
awesome. Yeah, for sure. We'll make sure to get the link from you. I'm sure it'll publish before we publish this episode. So we'll get the link. We'll put it in the show notes. It'll be there. Awesome. Thanks for being here. This was fantastic. One of my most fun conversations. We'll see everyone again next week.
Yeah, but if I look at the list of people you guys have interviewed, I mean, I'm so far away from those people. So
that's not true.
Rubbish. I am looking at your achievements right now, and I can promise you that is absolute rubbish.